Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 20 of the Own the Moment podcast. My name is TJ Lasig. I'm your host here at OTM. And as always, I am joined by my co-host, the Herzig bot himself, who set up an internal OTM NCAA March Madness tournament. And then, of course, won the bracket pool with our Discord. Justin, how does it feel to win your own March Madness tournament? The people can't be happy with you.
It feels dirty. Friend of the pod, gave some fantastic prizes. One of those was number 623, Giannis seeing star. And obviously the connection to the 623, the double LeBron. And after obviously my entire account, I wish it was all double LeBron jerseys. There's only 3 of them. So to get the double LeBron Giannis, which somehow works out for the serial, numerology bros, I can't be any happier than this.
There we are. No more than 15 seconds into the podcast, and we're already touting the double LeBron jersey number. Welcome to Own the Moment, ladies and gentlemen. And we have a guest joining us tonight as we're going to talk a bit about the state of the Top Shot market. And with us, we have Mr. Max Minsker. Max, how you doing tonight?
Not too bad, guys. It's been an eventful day. I'll say that.
Always an eventful day here in the Top Shot world. Happy to have Max on with us tonight as he's put together some very interesting Twitter threads over the past couple of days, and we definitely want to dive into that. So let me go ahead and set the stage here for the beginning of the show, and then we will dive into things. So what we're going to do tonight is just kind of have an open conversation about the current state of the market. We're going to talk through this kind of extended dip that we've been seeing, talk through some signs that maybe things are starting to trend in the right direction, and go through some of the things that Max highlighted in his Twitter thread as to why he is bullish on the next couple of months in Top Shot. We're also going to talk about what we've been seeing recently in the challenges that ended this week, and maybe we're seeing a bit of some bullish news in terms of how the challenges have gone as well. And yeah, whatever else comes up as a part of that, we'll talk about how each of us individually are handling the marketplace, all of that good stuff. Justin, how does that sound, my friend?
I think that sounds great. And I do want to preface with one thing is that, this is not going to be a show where we're just trying to pump and talk about how, everything's going up. We're obviously going to start a new bull market. Like now's the time, buy. I think Max had that fantastic thread that gives a perspective, and it's probably one that I personally agree with. But there are other viewpoints out there, and there's by no means a strong level of confidence that this is what's going to happen. And so through the show, we will try to take those kind of speak to the differing perspectives out there, the different kind of possibilities as well, because as collectors, as investors, like we want to make sure that we are accounting for the range of outcomes. And we don't have a full level of confidence in this. We have what our beliefs are, and each of us are going to talk about how we're reacting, being proactive towards all this. But we want to make sure that, hey, we're trying to provide our perspective, and we hope that through learning from each of us, you can help. You can start to create your own, but you should be devising your own. You should be creating your own strategy. You should be taking in as much as you can the whole do your own research perspective. And hopefully this is going to be one input for you in that larger kind of viewpoint.
Yep. Yeah, makes complete sense to me. And really, when it boils down to it, right, there's pretty much at a high level 3 things that each of us individually could be doing in the market. You could be out there buying, you could be just holding what you have, or you could be making this decision that maybe Top Shot is not for you. You don't believe in the long term, and you could be out there selling. So we're just going to talk through each of those scenarios. Max, not a fan of selling over there. I know that Justin and I both are not either, but we do want to respect the fact that maybe people out there are feeling this way and feeling like, hey, I joined, at the end of March. And ever since I joined, all I've seen is that the moments I bought went down. The moments I got in a pack went down. And, what the heck? This is not fun. I don't enjoy this. I missed the bull run that happened earlier in February. And now, Top Shot's dead. And we definitely see the Top Shot is dead people on Twitter. So we definitely want to speak to that and kind of acknowledge that if it's not for you, it's not for you. And I know, there's a lot of talk around the fact that There's not any new user signups right now. They're focusing on withdrawals over at Dapper, which I think is a great thing, and kind of create that even flow of money both in and out of the Top Shot ecosystem. So I guess, Max, I'll kick it to you here, in terms of buying, selling, holding. Where do you personally stand? And what are your current takes on the marketplace? And let's not go too deep into the specific thread yet, because we'll do a deep dive into that after, but just high level thoughts on the market.
Well, I mean, for me, I'm really kind of a challenge fiend. So I post a lot of data on challenges. I get pretty deep into the challenges. And right now, there really aren't any that are interesting to me. I haven't really gotten into the metallic gold challenges recently. I don't really like where the price points are at and where the rewards have ended up in the last few. So honestly, I have a few moments that I'm keeping an eye on that I kind of want to get, especially from Series 1. But right now, I'm not really doing a lot of buying or selling, to be honest with you. I'm just kind of in a little bit of a holding pattern. I was trying to actually scoop up some of the Seeing Stars 2 moments over the last couple of days, and I did pick up a few. But for the most part, I've been just kind of holding. I haven't been doing too much in the marketplace. But I mean, that can change at the drop of a hat, right?
And to be fair, when you say you've been holding, that doesn't mean you've been inactive, because you have been doing a crazy amount of analysis behind the scenes that have informed that decision. And we will obviously go into that. But no, I think like some people are like, oh, holding is lazy. Holding is not doing anything. Well, you know what? Some of the most impressive hedge funds, some of the most wealthy people will spend 100 times saying no throughout the year. And just that one time they make that big decision to go forward. And I don't think we're to an extreme point with that with Top Shot, but we're somewhere to the point of you probably should be saying no to 10, 20 different moments that you review, because each time you say no, it means you're going about your process and you're actually evaluating it. And then eventually you're finding the one that's right. Because if you're saying yes right now 10 times out of 10 or even 5 times out of 10, you're probably either A, seeing something that the rest of us aren't, and that's possible, or B, you're probably, not maximizing your capital by finding, hey, instead of getting those 5, maybe you just get that one and you double, triple up there or something.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just because I'm holding, quote unquote, doesn't mean I'm not in the marketplace, right? Like I'm looking, I'm monitoring prices, I'm refreshing every morning, I'm doing the analysis, like you said. It's just like, if I don't see a price on something that I like, or I don't have like a challenge that I'm really trying to buy for, I just end up not buying anything. And I'm not going to just dump all of my moments, for no reason. Like I have a lot of them listed at prices that I would sell them for theoretically, but if they don't sell and I don't find any good deals, then I'm just kind of holding by default. That doesn't mean I've left the marketplace for a week, right? So
absolutely. Yeah. I'm personally in the same boat too. Haven't been making a ton of purchases or selling. Definitely not selling. I did make a couple purchases in the last week, but nothing crazy. But I'm the same way, just keeping an eye on what's happening, a couple moments that I'm tracking pretty closely. And I think that's kind of a healthy way to approach this. I mean, we were in that euphoric state where it was like, buy, everything you see, like, don't even think too much about it, just buy it. And that was the right thing to do at the time. But I really could see this trending more in the direction where for a lot of people, it's like, hey, I'm going to buy 1 or 2 moments per month, and I'm going to, but that doesn't mean I'm not into Top Shot. It means that I'm just spending a lot of time doing my analysis, following the marketplace to find out when the right time is to make those purchases and to continue to build up my portfolio, or whenever there's a challenge that comes into play that I'm interested in. Like, patience is definitely part of the game plan here. And early on in Top Shot, it didn't pay to be patient, because it was just a no-brainer to just buy anything. And that's what I was doing. And now we have to adjust to the way things are now. Things have flattened out a bit. We've seen some positive-ish momentum, I would say, in the last couple of days, in terms of it felt like for a while it was just consistently down. Right. Now we've seen things at least flatten, if not trend upwards. And that makes sense too, right? Because you're going to shake off all of the users that are super not into Top Shot and just looking to get out. And maybe we're getting to the point where most of those have been shaken off, and a lot of the people that are left are folks like us that are holding on. And I really think that the next thing that is going to start the next bull run will be when we start to get some new user signups and start to get some more capital money flowing into the Dapper system.
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, And we just saw in the most recent office hours today that they said that new signups are still being restricted. So I know had a friend who was trying to sign up, and his experience, he said, is that yes, it's open, but he had to join like a wait list, or he was trying to explain it to me. But it was definitely, there was still some process that he had to go through, and then he had to eventually maybe get an email to sign up. So it is by no means open to the point that majority of us signed up where it was, hey, click, connect my Gmail account and I'm in. And it seems like their reasoning is they want to make sure that when they open the floodgates, they're able to manage it. And I really question, and the stuff that came out today with the article, I am forgetting his name. Who did the? Yeah, no, I know Vegas Davis. Who's the one? I want to make sure I give credit. Who did the
Taylor.
actual?
Taylor?
Was it Stein?
Yep.
Taylor Stein, right?
Yeah. Okay. So he did a great analysis that actually showed, Vegas Dave, or whoever is this account that is pretending to be Vegas Dave, had 55 accounts that got seeing stars. And people are like, holy crap, like he has 55 accounts. No, there's 55 accounts that got the seeing stars. How many people were in line to get those seeing stars? I think it was about 150,000, maybe even 200,000. And you're looking at somewhere, I don't remember the numbers, a 10 to 20% success rate. Even if we say it was 20%, you're now looking at 55 times 5. So we're looking at more of 250, 300 accounts. Like, these are huge operations, and this is not just an isolated incident. So if you're talking that there are people who have 300 of these accounts, that can make a significant impact on the market. I don't exactly know what would happen with these moments after the challenges or stuff, but if you're, we always talk about undercutting, we talk about the impact of the market. If you have these bots, these ones that are literally just trying to go because they have nefarious motives, and they're trying to either sell to get dapper and figure out how to consolidate, and then maybe only gives one moment or such, like that can have a major impact on the market. And so we as an individual maybe just feel it on the drops, on the actual packs, like, oh, I didn't get one. But what we're not seeing is that impact on the market. And if we can get rid of that, I think that is actually one of the most under discussed, under realized potential keys to the market to actually driving up this price later, when we know the buyers are real. The sellers are the ones that are potentially fake. When we know those now are removed, how does that provide a bit more of an equilibrium and then, trustworthy market?
Shout out to Taylor Stein in the chat. Nice work, man. That was a great read. And yeah, that was good find, good analysis, and just a really interesting story. And like Justin said, not the best thing to hear, but hey, it's good to be highlighting these things so that the Dapper team can take the appropriate steps. And it sounds like they already are. And I saw a response from Alan saying that if you look at those accounts, they haven't made transactions in a while. So they're going to find you, right? The same way that those people out there that tried to trick us on the giveaways, Producer Coop hounded you down. If there are multi-accounters out there, the Dapper team will find you and get you down there. Max, any thoughts on that and the thread or the article that Taylor wrote earlier?
Yeah. So first of all, I think it was a really, really good article, and it was really well written. So nice work on that, Taylor. I think it started a lot of discussion. Kind of to your point, Justin, I think that the thing about this is that the reason why it's kind of undercovered and under talked about is that there's no way for us to really understand the scope of the problem or how much it's affecting undercutting, right? Because okay, so we know that there are people who are undercutting the market. And what we mean by that is when, right after a challenge, right, the price of a certain moment that was involved in the challenge will drop from $120 to $70, right? And you say, okay, 120 to 70. But all of a sudden, you'll be in the marketplace and somebody will list that moment where the current lowest ask is 70 for like $48, right? And you're just sitting there, you're like, why did you do this? Like, why did you just list it for $22 less than the lowest ask was? And then all of a sudden, you see one pop up for 47, right? And you see one pop up for 46, and maybe those get scooped up. But then somebody says, oh, the lowest ask is 48. I'll list mine at 54, right? And then all of a sudden, you were at 70, but because a few people started going so low, then everybody else kind of, uses that number as a basis for their listing, and the price just keeps dropping more and more and more until the bottom completely falls out, right? But the reality is, all we see in the live feed is the price going down, right? We don't know how much the undercutting is affecting the market. right? We don't know if that's really causing the drop, or maybe they're just the first ones. They're beating people to the punch, right? Or maybe sometimes they're just listing what it'll eventually be at, right? But we've seen some really interesting drops, right? Like we've seen some like really, really precipitous drops. And especially I think this is like manifesting itself even worse, or more obviously, I should say, in the reward moments, right? Like when the LeBron gets deposited in people's accounts from Seeing Stars too, people, like Plunge Father was tweeting about this the other day. Like people were buying all the way up, but there's people still kept listing them lower, right? It's like people are buying them at 1,100. Why are you listing it at 1,020? Somebody's going to buy it if you list it at 1,100. So on the reward moments, it's been really damaging, and it makes it really hard to justify the challenge because you can just pick up the pieces later when somebody undercuts, right? It's not just that it like hurts the challenge or it's bad for the activity. It's like people are listing below what the actual value is, which makes it easier to get the challenge retroactively, which just defeats the purpose. And if it is these bots that's doing that activity, right, that means that the price and the EV is being artificially suppressed. That's the real issue. But we don't know the extent of the problem, right? And the reason why I like Taylor's article so much, right, is because it's that first big domino, right? 100 people retweeting, one of the biggest influencers in the Top Shot community, saying, I found a major, major case of this, right? And then we're all sitting here saying, oh my God, like I've seen this in the marketplace. Like I've seen people sniping. I've seen people listing it low. But this is the first time somebody's put something out that has just, it was like a meteor hitting the earth. Like I read it and I was just I got to the end of the article and I was just like, wow. Like, because like to your point, right? It was like it must have been hundreds of accounts. And then all of them were funneling them into one account. And then that
not even being sneaky about it.
Seeing Stars moments that have never been on the market. It's like, what is going on here? Like, this is crazy. So like, we don't know how big the scope is, but this article was like a window inside what the scope might be. And it was really shocking. Yeah. And now people are talking about it, which is good.
Yeah, agreed. And I think you bring up an interesting point here. Even if we remove the bots from the conversation, let's remove the bots and let's just say it is an honest market. Now, people can make whatever decision they want. Not everyone makes a rational, analytical decision. But the market right now is being set by the tails and the tails of the sellers. So you may have, let's see, the LeBron, you had 4,567 of them, I think. So maybe just under 5,000. All you need is 1% who say, hey, I need money for paying my rent this week and I need to get out. Or like, I'm not half with Top Shot anymore. So if you get 1%, that's 50. So now we've got 50 people who are selling and their goal is just to get out. So they're okay with taking, if it's what we were seeing around like 1,000, 1,100, they're okay. I'm okay if I don't get that extra $50, $100, I'm just going to sell it. And you get enough of those. And as you said, that now bottom is set. Now, let's consider the inverse. What if we had a bidder's market? What if we had that rather than people selling at the lowest ask, we had the ability for buyers that wanted to get in to set the price? Again, it's going to be a tails market, but now it's a tails market by the ones who are willing to pay the most, because now we will see the highest bids are the ones that are going to get sales. Then we see in the market, okay, how much do these sell for? Well, now we know that people are willing to pay $1,400, $1,500 for this. So the people with the lowest ask sales are now going to adjust to the buyer's tails, which becomes far more of a seller's market. And that, I think, is something that's not existing today, probably just because of our product tech difficulty. We know that there's been a lot of talk about it. We see it in the CryptoPunk space, and we know that it's possible. And this is one of the reasons why, we keep going back to like why I'm bullish on this is there are so many compound variables right now that are leading to a just shitty market. The bots, the low ask, the people who are just trying to get out because they got in early on and just want to flip. Like once these features kind of evolve, once our market kind of gets these benefits and kind of gets rid of these negative factors, it's just smooth sailing from there. And so, like bidder's market is just one small thing, but like the market would be profoundly different if that's included.
I think that there's a whole conversation to be had about the bidders market, and I think that there's a lot of value to potentially be had there. But I do want to make one delineation, right? You talk about the person who says, "Oh, I've got to pay my rent this month. I've got to make a withdrawal. I'm fine foregoing the extra $50, so I'm going to list mine below lowest ask so I can withdraw." Right? See, that I'm totally fine with, right? And I think everybody on Top Shot just has to live with that. Like, that's the market, right? If somebody wants to sell it and they want to sell it quick and liquidate it immediately, that's their choice. But I think that where some collectors are making a valid point is around the artificial manipulation, right? If somebody, or even if it's like intentional to the point where, and I haven't seen a lot of people talking about this, but like if you tank the price, like if you artificially list something at like 40 to get people to start selling at 40, and then you start scooping them up all on the way up, or basically you are, like you're trying to do something nefarious, or like you have hundreds of seeing stars moments. So you're just listing them all at 10% or $10 below min ask just to like dump them all at once. Right? See, there's just like a fundamental distinction between those two. One is just a free market where a seller decides to make a sale. One is being artificially manipulated. We definitely have to be fine with the first one because that's just how things work. But the second one is where people are starting to make legitimate claims about, being undercut and losing value. So I think that there's just like a distinction that's like really important there.
100% agree. And I think my only differentiation is I have no problem with the person who needs to sell that $50 less to get out.
Right.
The issue is when the structure of the market is set up, that then sets the price.
Right.
Because all we're seeing when it's a low ask market is, hey, this is what it's sold for, so this is what it's worth. If you have that bidder opportunity, the bidder side, we also will see, well, then here's the cap. Here's that upside, here's that floor, just like more of a stock market style. We're seeing both sides. And yes, free market should obviously reign supreme. Each person should be able to do what they want as long as there's not nefarious actors. But now we can actually see, we can see those tiers. And now we get a better idea of where this price actually should land.
Yeah, I haven't thought through all of the implications of like a bid system, really. I haven't really read a lot of people talking about it. I've like definitely seen it on Twitter and stuff like that. And I don't know what kind of problems that presents from a technical perspective, but it certainly sounds like it could fix some of the issues that we're seeing in the marketplace right now. So I wonder what the internal discussions are even like at Dapper Labs around that.
From what I know, they're considering it. I don't know if they've talked about it from an economic standpoint of the impact it could have. I would love if they had some form of a kind of game simulation team or somewhere just in this to say like, hey, let's run a mock simulation like a war game, get people in, let's get this new kind of method of, okay, let's do bids. Let's see what happens. Maybe let's say we're going to unload a new set around XYZ. I know they have their head economist who's that kind of forecasting what happens, but if you could actually run some of these war style games, I think that'd be the most impactful way for them to kind of simulate what could happen to the market.
Are you talking
How would
about
it work though? You'd have to bid on individual serial numbers of a moment. Like I think that it becomes two
things.
The adoption curve is a lot higher then, right? Like it's easier for someone new to come on and just see what's listed and go ahead and buy. It's a lot more challenging to have to come on and be like, okay, I need to come up with the number that I want to bid on a specific serial moment. And then I could see new users getting a little bit overwhelmed by that. And
it was like a UI issue also.
Right.
Yeah.
Or you're just bidding on any of them. You're just saying, hey, I want the cheapest ask. But what happens is you get a bit of a blind system here. And so you can see like what the recent sales are. And so you're saying, I either want like the lowest, I want the cheapest one and I'm willing to pay $100. And did I get one? No. But here's the thing, like if someone behind the scenes was listing it for 89 and that was the lowest and I put 100, I get it for 89 because that's what they were willing to go. And if no one, let's say no one had it listed for 105, my 100 doesn't get accepted. So there's some form here, and I'm obviously haven't fully thought this out. But there's got to be some improved method because agreed, CryptoPunk's method of you actually send someone an offer is a bit too complex. That works because each person only owns really for the most part one CryptoPunk.
Right.
Here I own 1,000 moments. Like there's something.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be interesting to see what they experiment with. And I'm sure it's a conversation that if they're not having it already, they will have in the future I know they have a ton on their plate. So maybe this is not quite a priority yet, but I'm sure it's somewhere on the roadmap to be discussed.
We'll bring it up in the collectors council, Roham.
There we go. Love it. Shout out to Roham. All righty. Shall we get into this thread a bit from our friend? First off, I guess anything to close off that first topic, just in terms of buying, selling, holding.
Yeah. I mean, so I do just want to, so at a high level, we do think like these are the three main options here. So obviously, if you are not bullish in Top Shot right now, if you do not feel like now is the right opportunity, you know, whatever it is, things have changed in your mind and you just don't think this is the right product long term, you have the opportunity to get out. I think the other, as we kind of discussed here, is a hold and wait mentality. And I think for the most part, that's where a lot of people who have been in this are currently, because they see this as the reason why I got into Top Shot has not significantly changed. My hypotheses, the reasons that I feel that these are going to be, you know, Top Shot's going to be successful have not changed. And I've already put a significant amount of money into this. So I'm willing to just kind of hold and see how it goes. There is that third option of accumulate. And this is probably where I personally am shifting into. I'm right now doing it, as we said before, like I'm heavily focused on specific ones. I've been specifically looking at jersey numbers and trying to find values there for players' first moments. I think there's some strategy aspect there. But like, I don't want to just pass up, like, our prices right now are really not much different than where we were in January. And in January, we all got extremely excited and believed like, hey, this is a great value. I want to get in. So I think we each individually need to ask ourselves, what has changed? What has changed between now and then? And the easy answer is I invested a lot of money in January and I just don't have the capital that I can put towards this right now. And that's a perfectly legitimate answer. But if you're more so like, hey, I'm just waiting for X, Y, Z to happen before I put in more money, I think now is the time, at least where I'm asking myself is like, okay, what has changed that I'm not willing to do it now? Because long story short, the prices right now are similar to what they are then. There have only been, in my mind, reasons that make me more bullish on this. The success that we saw in such a short period of time, the funding round of the $300-some million that Dapper Labs has got, the amount of NBA engagement, the team engagement, the larger NFT market, like there's only things that have made me more bullish on this. And so I keep asking myself, like, why am I not putting my money in now? And I think the only thing is because I keep telling myself, I can wait until it starts going up and then I'll jump in, because there's still that, you know, everything looks like it's going down. It's all pointing downward. And the challenge, like from a market standpoint, timing it is extremely difficult. So I'm conscious of that. I'm trying to drink my own medicine, take my own medicine, drink my own champagne and such. And so I do think like I'm very close to that accumulation period. We'll see.
Yeah. Let's hear it in the chat. Everyone let us know. You guys buying, selling, holding, and why? I would love to hear from some people in the chat, or if you're watching this after the fact, leave a comment about what your personal strategy is. I think it'd be interesting to see just what different people are doing. I'm already seeing some people in the chat talking about that they've been buying the dip or that they're holding around. So I would love to see and hear from those folks.
I want to go into Max's thread.
Let's do it. Let's do it. I have it up on one of my 1 million tabs here. All right, here we go. I got
you got the thread
the thread reader so that we can see it all in one spot. So for those that have not seen the thread, you'll get to see it for the first time. But you can also go ahead, follow Max on Twitter and view it for yourself. But Max, I think I might kind of turn it over to you here rather than me try to summarize your thread for you. If you just want to talk through the high level themes, and we can scroll through some of the parts that maybe you want to focus on the most, but thought you made a lot of good points and brought in a lot of the hot topics and kind of summarized it into why you think that over the next couple of months, we'll start to see some positive momentum.
Yeah, for sure. So I've been working on this thread for a couple days. I think I had most of the research done by Sunday, but it's just a matter of like, finding the time to write it. And I think that, the main reason why I wanted to make this thread was just because, I've seen a lot of analysis of the market and, it's going up, it's going down. Mostly lately, it's been going down. And what that means for buying or selling. And I wanted to go back, like kind of back to the fundamentals, because I think one of the things that people kind of dissociate is like the Dapper Labs Top Shot connection. They just think of like Top Shot as like this thing, right? Like Top Shot is Top Shot. It's just like this, you know, omnipotent force, right? That's just kind of like there and is in a permanent stasis, right? But like that's just not the case, right? It's run by Dapper Labs, and Dapper Labs is like a startup, you know, or at least they were. So it's like the growth and success of Top Shot is really based on like Dapper Labs' ability to grow and market the product and, you know, develop new features and stuff like that. So I wanted to just dive into some of the high level, like big picture things to think about now that like Dapper Labs has raised this new round of funding, and kind of contextualizing, like kind of taking like, oh, okay, we've seen a lot of like tit for tat in the marketplace, but like what does the big picture actually look like? So that's kind of what I was trying to summarize in this thread, and like take a step back and look at that.
Yeah, I think that all makes a ton of sense. Like and a lot of it is kind of similar to something that Justin and I have talked about around, you know, at the end of the day, the Top Shot market is determined by the money that is getting deposited needs to be greater than the money that is being withdrawn / going to Dapper for some of the fees. And right now, and something that you touch on in this thread, is that we do not have that new money coming in because we do not have any new user signups right now. And that's kind of one of the points that is currently holding things back. But eventually that kind of floodgate will be opened, and I'm sure we'll see a ton of new users come in, which will then increase the demand, and hopefully we start to see things move positively from there.
Yeah, completely. Let's talk a little bit about the flywheel, because I think that concept is really important, and I think it's important to understand like both the concept and then how it broke down and why we're seeing the current spiral. So I'll just kind of talk a little bit about like how I was thinking about this concept, and this is like, you know, really basic analysis, but I think it's really important. So the growth flywheel is, you know, it's just like a way to frame like the health of the platform and how it's going to grow. So you have new signups, and you have like a bunch of people that get on the platform, right? And when that happens, there's increased transaction volume because new people come on, they start buying, they, you know, probably start by like just getting a few moments of players they like or flipping a pack or something like that. But then eventually some percentage of them will convert into collectors, some percentage of them will fall off. But you know, that overall onboarding experience is good for the platform. And then as a result, the prices of the moments, either the moments themselves or just like the market cap in general, increase. And there's like a discussion of obviously about supply there. But the overall value of the market increases, let's just say, when there's more people buying and there's more transactions happening. And then what happens is people get on social media and they start talking about it, right? They get on Twitter, they get on social media, or even like talking to their friends, right? Like somebody commented on the thread and was like, yeah, I heard about Top Shot playing pickup basketball, and somebody was talking about it, right? The more users you onboard onto the platform, the more it's going to grow just via whether it be word of mouth or social media or whatever, right? And then that in turn leads to new signups. But what happened in February is that it grew way too fast, right? And right around the first loop around, it like blew a fuse, right? And then I have like a little graph like down a little bit of like what happens when the flywheel breaks, right? The real problem that I see, like looking back in the last month, is that, yeah, that's it right there, is what happens is when there's a ton of social media hype and people are tweeting about it, people are talking about it, new users are getting onboarded, right? What happens is people assume that there's going to be a lot of new money flooding into the market. And why would you not assume that if like tons and tons of people are getting on and tons of people are starting to buy, right? But then when they shut down the sign up process, that a lot of that new money is priced in, but it never actually enters the market. So when it's priced into the market, but it never enters the market, then it starts to fall, and it starts to fall really, really fast. And then the liquidity starts to dry up, and it just creates this spiral of fear where it's like, oh my God, now things are tanking. And then everybody starts saying, oh, it's a bubble, right? And then that even encourages more selling off. And that's what happens when you don't have the sign up capacity. The thing to remember about Dapper and all of this, right, is that Dapper's last round of funding was like $10 million, which in terms of like a platform like this is absolutely nothing. Like $10 million for a platform like this is literally pennies. So when people, say like, oh, like Dapper Labs, they can't be trusted, they blew it, or something like that. People are always in the replies and stuff like that, like saying, oh, like I can't believe they let this happen or whatever, right? The fact that they were even able to get as far as they got is insane. This never should have been able to be built on $10 million in the first place. And I think they raised a couple Series A rounds. So like, it's not just $10 million, but for the sake of argument, like it's like a Series A/Series B company trying to manage a platform with hundreds of thousands of users. And it's all based on organic growth, right? So when the funnel broke, the prices collapsed. Right. But what I'm assuming they're doing right now, and I hope they're doing right now, and I think they are doing right now, is building up capacity so that in the future, the flywheel can work as intended. Right. So it doesn't break down. And I think that they're building that up right now. And once it starts working more efficiently, we're going to be able to see the impact of that explosive growth. But the problem is the platform, as we've seen, can double at any time. So they need to build way more capacity than they even have, right? They need to, we have 100,000 users. Well, we need to be able to handle 300,000 users, even though we don't have them. With $10 million, it's impossible to build for that, right? Because you can barely build for what you have. With 300 million, you can probably build for that. So I think that it's less likely that it'll break down like that in the future. But things just got way out of control way too quickly. And so I'm not surprised at all by... I am surprised by the extent to which the prices have crashed for sure, but I'm not surprised that like they had to close down signups, for example, right? Like obviously that was going to happen with how much growth they were experiencing. So that's kind of a view of like, in my opinion, like what the flywheel is and how like that growth reinforces itself, right? And creates a cycle, and then how it can fall off and become a disaster. And I think we saw it fall off, and now it's kind of the ball's in Dapper's court. Now they have the money to get it back on track and fix it. And we'll see if they can execute.
Yeah. And I think this flywheel, I think the signups is obviously such a huge, kind of lever here. I think there was one other play as well that kind of led to this, that falls into this death spiral. This is a human team. These are decisions made by humans. If anyone's worked at a company, like you understand the difficulty of communication and everything, and just different objectives, different goals. What I believe happened is you have the product team that was building a product that needed to be successful today, but also with that forward looking. And then you have the security, the compliance, the, whoever's managing all the new users and stuff, and really from a tech side as well. And they're hearing that, hey, we can't grow. So when they put out all those new packs, when they decided we're going to move the circulation count for rares, so now rares are up into thousands and such, and we put out 2 of the rising stars, the seeing stars, we put out these /10,000s. Those were the amount of moments that needed to be put out for if we continue to grow at the scale and pace that we were going. So then when they put that kind of pause in the new signups, but the product team continued to put out this large amount of these rare moments, when in reality weren't that rare. Not to mention there was the artificial inflation of user count by these bots, and then everything that happened there. But I think like that was one of the challenges as well that they definitely, I believe, have learned from, and we've seen the kind of slowing down of all these challenges and the packs, the sets have been released. But I think that's one of the growing pains that they experienced. Is it makes sense why they were trying to put out all these new moments, because, hey, in the future, we want Series 2 to have rares that all these millions of users that we have are going to be able to own some of. But then the other side is saying, oh, but we're not going to have that many users now, and we're actually not going to have any new users. So that kind of just overall devalued the idea of a rare for Series 2.
Yeah, I think you can really see that. Sorry, I just think you can really see that during the All-Star weekend when we had all of those pack drops and all of those new sets dropping and the massive increase in supply. And then shortly after that, no more user signups. That was kind of like the current death sentence for the bull market, at least. And yeah, I think it'll get itself worked out in the future, but definitely agree with both of the points you guys made there. Go ahead, Max.
Yeah, no, I think that, when you look at the big picture, I think that overall, like things are still pretty good. Like when you look at the underlying metrics, like like how much time people are spending on the site, how many unique buyers we have, how many like people are getting withdrawals on a weekly basis. Like things are still trending upwards. We just saw like a lot of new onboarding at once, and it kind of crashed the system. But like if you think about it in a different way, like that, isn't that kind of a good sign? Like there was literally so many people that wanted to buy based on organic traffic. Like people were just bursting down the doors trying to buy.
Right.
And everyone's like, oh, it's a failure because they couldn't handle all the people that wanted to give them money.
Right.
It's like,
and you just hope that that was legitimate. You hope that it was people who were actually interested in the platform and were signing up, and not someone with 300 accounts that are trying to kind of get through. And then also there was obviously some incentive from people who are, when your media hype is based off X amount of person is making this much money or so forth, and like
right.
That's what we're really driving. Like that, yes, it brings attention, but it probably doesn't bring the best from a short-term stance.
For sure. And I think that there's a certain amount of people that were just in it to make a quick buck. And that's kind of just inevitable, I think. But I think what you're seeing is like there's a pretty strong community forming around Top Shot right now. Like there's a lot of people on Twitter. Like I literally, people are commenting, DMing like, oh, what should I buy? What should I buy? Oh, like I gotta get in now before the market goes back up or whatever, like, and it's not that like they're trying to just like make a quick buck. It's like people are just really passionate. Mm-hmm. And I think that like you made a really good point earlier about the commons and the rares and trying to like make enough moments to like get into people's hands. I think that like dovetailing with the issue of like user growth coming too quickly, there's like this like concurrent problem of like the supply of moments in the marketplace. And I think that like this is a really divisive issue, right? Of like how, like, should people be able to own commons, and like, or should everybody be able to own commons, or like, what should the minimum price be for a moment? And I think that this is like really, really important. And I think that like hindsight is 2020, and in hindsight, Top Shot, like I think made like a pretty big mistake waiting as long as they did to release like enough commons and like the 35K CCs, like basically. But they didn't know they were going to grow this fast at that time, right? So like, how are they supposed to know? But like in hindsight, they probably should have dumped a ton of like really, really, really low quality moments into the market in like, November, December, January, and just kind of flooded out the commons, like the super, super common ones, right? Not like 12K LE or whatever, but like, just like the bottom of the barrel, like Austin Rivers 35K plus, or Jay Crowder. Like I have a couple of those or whatever. Like they should have just put like 100,000 of those into circulation. And maybe this is totally wrong, so maybe somebody can correct me here, but like, I just feel like if they had flooded the market with a ton of excess capacity for moments sooner, it's unlikely that like common moments in the first place would have been bid up to like $60 like we saw in February. But now the problem is, if they're about to turn on the marketing faucet again, they face the same problem they did then, right? They face the same problem because they have a chance right now to basically flood the market with commons that would be like oversplattered, right? Like we were talking about how they need to build for 2x, 3x capacity now in terms of dev cycles, right? In terms of like engineering capacity and like the ability to take on new users. But they can't just onboard 3x their user base with the same amount of supply, or we're going to see the exact same cycle of like, straight up and then straight down that we saw 2 months ago, right? But then if they flood the market with supply now, it's just going to piss off all the current users because all of their common moments are going to decline precipitously, right? So there is this really, really tough conversation that comes with like, when do you introduce more supply and how much? Because if they turn on the marketing faucet and they onboard a ton of new users with the current supply of moments, like it's just going to happen all over again.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that we've talked about as well, is as many of these common moments that can get into the system, like there needs to be that very cheap entry point for any of the new users that are coming on, where, okay, I'm going to try to get a pack, but I don't get a pack, but I can go to the marketplace and I can buy moments for $2, $3, and at least still get my feet wet in that way. I mean, there was a time where you couldn't get anything less than 20, 25, $30, even for the cheapest moments on the site. So yeah, that's something that I know, Justin, you've talked about as well, being able to just continue to generate that bottom end supply. And the other thing is that the continuing to add the very, very bottom is not going to have any impact on the top end markets in terms of like, increasing that supply. Yeah, it'll help just make the moments that people already have to be more valuable because they look more scarce relative to
the problem is
ones.
It's just kind of like, how do you even release that in a pack drop, right?
Oh, I think that's exactly what you do.
Okay, we're going to put 500,000 moments of really crappy 35K. We're just going to print 100,000 of these and we're just going to put them into the market. What do? Do pack drops for $1 that are like 3 of the worst moments in Top Shot? Like that doesn't get anybody excited. How do you even release that?
No, but that's exactly what you do. That's exactly what you do.
They may have, I don't know.
You have the $9 packs. You have the $9 packs. Now they'll become readily available. The reason why people are buying them is because you still have a lottery aspect of there's a LaMelo in there. And my chance of getting that LaMelo might be 1%, but maybe a chance of getting a different rookie is 5%. But we're not going to get to a place where, hey, I'm a huge proponent of put these common moments to 100K. And yes, someone in the chat mentioned, I think it was Sasha's dad, like, yeah, you're right. 100K common moment would probably go worth a quarter, which means you may not even be able to sell it. Maybe you can get $1 or something if you get lucky. But there's nothing wrong with that because Roham is a huge proponent of, I believe that if people go through the experience of what it's like to open a pack, engage, search the marketplace, they're going to become long-term users. Do that through these packs because, hey, I get the fun experience. I get that kind of jolt. Maybe there's a good chance of me getting something. And if I end up with 3 crappy ones, then so be it. I paid $9 for the entertainment value, but that now allows for there's significant differentiation between what is the common, the standard, that just kind of run-of-the-mill moment, and the rares are that much more valuable. Right. The ones from early on are that much more valuable. It creates a real collector's ecosystem where, yeah, if I want it for fun, I can play the hardcore game. I can get these cheap ones. I can always just call up my friend and say, hey, let's go buy some packs and have some fun and see what we get. But you still, though, allow for that ecosystem to grow rather than just, hey, let's just put a whole bunch in these middle price that no one knows what it really is. And maybe they're kind of oversaturating and so forth.
The problem is when you talk about like flooding the market with commons or like in general, when you talk about increasing the supply of moments in the marketplace, it is an impossible math problem to solve for because you have too many unknown variables on both sides. If they knew that their user base was going to grow exactly 4x in the next 3 months, they could probably forecast how much supply they would need to keep the prices at a reasonable point while still helping out collectors. If they knew that it was going to go 10x, they could probably do that. But when you don't know how much supply you should put out and you don't know how many new people you're going to be onboarding, how are you supposed to match them up?
And pre-order packs is exactly how they did it. Yeah.
Or do like a reasonable estimate and then hope for the best. But that's the issue is, if they knew they were going to grow linearly, they could plan for this much more effectively. And that's why here's the thing, like when it comes to like people ask me like for buying recommendation stuff, I'm like, guys, it is a beta. Like, I'm not going to say like, oh, go buy this, make 100% returns. Like, that's just not the way it works, right? Like they have to decide how much supply to dump in, how many new users to let on. Like they're controlling kind of both sides of the equation here because they could shut off the signups at any time. They could shut off the supply or ramp it up at like any time. Like it's not like just this stable marketplace where you can assume like a reasonable level of appreciation, right? Like it's a beta. Like we don't know how many new users there's going to be there. We don't know how much supply is going to be put into the marketplace in accordance with that new user growth and like how much the lag might be if there's significant user growth. Like there's just really no way to know. And it makes it really, really difficult to for them to forecast. And that's why I kind of like feel bad for them almost because you've got all these people like roasting them on Twitter. And it's just like how, like, this is an impossible thing to solve for. Like, you just got to do the best you can and hope for the best. But like, I would say all things considered, it's been pretty good so far. So I expect that they'll respond reasonably in the future and be able to create like somewhat reasonable forecasts. But like, it is like, it's impossible.
And I think you bring up a good point because I think this is probably what their inspiration behind doing these pre-order packs were. Because if you actually dive into what are in these pre-order packs, they say, okay, for the rookies, there's only going to be this many. For the first moments of a player, there's only going to be this many. For the, I guess maybe the newer ones, the first moment of that one, the new moments is only going to be that many. But then there could be 35, 40, 50K of all of these others. And so that's kind of how they're taking a, let's call it a Band-Aid solution to say, we want to, if we want to control for one variable, the variable we're going to control for is we're not going to mint until we know what the demand is. And so when they see they made 325,000 of those last pre-order packs, now behind the scenes, they're saying, okay, we know that we're only going to release, as we said from the beginning, these more, I don't want to say rare because that's not the correct term, but just, the more valuable ones. And now we'll see how many of the others. And like when we did an expected value, it still came out to the range was $55 to $60 or whatever. So like there's still significant value here just because those rookies and such are driving up the price. But also we're not having 100,000s yet. When we get to the 100,000s, now we get to a place where like, hey, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. And that's just the way it is.
If you wait until the demand is there, though, that means that the current supply has already been overbought. So you've already, the prices are already too high. You know what I mean? You kind of have to get ahead of it to a certain extent. Because if you're like, okay, we're going to wait until we've got 100,000 people clamoring for this, that means that they've probably been in the marketplace buying up everything in sight. And then when you do release that supply, then the price of everything else is going to go down accordingly.
So your hidden variable is the future. How are we going to project that future marketplace?
And you can't. And you can't in a product that's so viral that grows so quickly. You can't. It's just not possible. I really like the point you made about like releasing sporadic like packs and like, there's going to be like 1,000 lamellos in this pack or whatever. And I think there's like a really good argument on both sides to be had there. I think that like I did a thread about this for the Conley challenge where they had only released like a third of the moments for each of the moment, which created kind of a supply shortage for the Conley challenge. I am split and I feel like I really want to like learn from somebody else. Maybe you guys could comment on this, but I really don't like it when they only release like, let's say there's going to be 4,000 of a moment minted.
The quickly situation right
now. Yeah. The problem is if the whole market, it seems like there's a big market education gap. The market doesn't seem to understand that there's a current shortage of those moments. So they always trade for like triple the price for the first couple of weeks. And then when the rest of the supply gets released, it cuts in half. When the rest of the supply gets released, it cuts in half again. And then every single person who bought one, like when it first came out, gets destroyed automatically. And I feel like a lot of those people are probably new to Top Shot. They probably don't know that like all the supply hasn't been released yet. So I feel like it's not very beginner friendly to only release a third of the supply at one time. I don't know. Like I want to hear some opinions on this. Like I want to know what you guys think, but I would almost prefer that if they're going to release 4,000 lamellos, they should just release them all at once so that the market can just go and decide what the price is right away. Because what we've seen is like Peyton Pritchard, there'll be 1,000 Peyton Pritchards that come out of the 4,000 and they'll sell for like $500. And then when the next round hits, all of a sudden it's like $250. And then it rises back up to 300 and then more come out. And then now it's 180 and everybody who bought one gets burned. And I don't know, I don't like it.
You can't own a /35K right now, except for a rare example. I mean, like I know people like were in Anthony Edwards early on and they're like, oh, there's /35K. So they're going to go down. And then he became the, rookie of the year favorite, blah, blah, blah. For almost any other case though, like you just can't own these /35Ks. And then I know like the Emmanuel Quickly was another example where like I'm big on him and wanted to buy a bunch of his moments.
Yeah, I wanted to buy one too. Like, wait, if you look at that, I was sitting there on like March 20th and I was like, oh man, I want this moment so bad. And I was just like, I can't buy this because there's going to be more supply released and it's going to tank. So, you know what I mean? And then for me as a collector, I'm sitting there and I want this moment and it's in the market. There's some of them in the marketplace. And I'm literally sitting there saying, if I buy this, it is guaranteed that I'm going to get burned.
It's just not worth it. Right. And so maybe you pay up for a good cereal, because you found a good value.
Yeah, like maybe if
even those, the ratio is going to. I like that. I don't. Another thing we'll bring up with Roham and the Collectors Council, because I agree with you. Like this is something that 90% of 80% of collectors aren't familiar with, and I agree with you. It's the ones who aren't educated that are getting screwed in the challenges, that are getting screwed with these /35Ks. And like we, as content creators, putting in OTM NFT like the site and stuff, like we're trying to help educate. And it's important, but not everyone's on Twitter. Not everyone is following this as much as we are. Not everyone's in our bubble.
That's the issue. So whenever I'm thinking about buying a moment, I got my eye on something from series 2, I always go to like evaluate down market, and I'll look up the moment, and they have right there on the site what percent of the moments have been minted and what percent of the moments have been distributed, right? Or like which ones are not in a pack. So
we've actually got that here as well. So we added this recently where you can, on the moments page here,
can we look at one
sort
quick
by the percent that are in circulation. Yeah, we can check on any of them that you
can we
want
look at Xavier Tillman actually?
So recommendation, zoom in for people, because I just did that, made it full screen, and I can see a lot better. Not you. You're fine, TJ. Everyone else is saying.
Okay. Everyone zoom in.
Yeah.
Because that Xavier Tillman moment, I actually had my eye on that one for a little while because I want it. Because I think Xavier Tillman is like a little bit underrated. So based on your guys' numbers there, it looks like 17% is in circulation, and then 5% is currently in packs.
And then
just like held back, and then 77% have yet to come.
Yeah, like you just can't like. It doesn't matter how bullish you are on that player. It doesn't matter, because a far more greater factor is going to be when new moments hit, more supply going to drop.
Right. You go on the Top Shot website and you think that there's 4,000 of these available, but there's actually only 694 that are currently available to be bought or sold and owned by an actual person.
And the thing is, I think the rubber really hits the road when you put this type of a moment into a challenge. That to me, that's just a problem.
So is that the Conley one that you were talking about?
Yeah. Because the prices for those commons were like $60, and I was like, these are worthless.
Yeah,
like
Will Barton's the example that I remember. Will Barton for the Cool Cat 2.
Yeah.
His price was the same as the other Cool Cats because his moments had not been distributed until near the end of that challenge. So his price was ludicrous. And
maybe they have a reason why they do this that I'm not thinking of. And like, I haven't thought about it from all the angles. So I'm definitely open to hearing arguments about this issue, but I haven't heard a lot of people talking about it. And it really can, this is like a really, because it's almost like a guaranteed 50% loss sometimes. And like that can really burn a new collector, especially. So like, this is an issue I've really been thinking about. And I don't know, like, I keep waiting for the counter argument. Like, I really want to hear the counter argument because I think there might be a reason why.
Well, there's a good counter argument. There is. If you miss out on one pack, does that mean you don't get LaMelo? Because not everyone gets a pack. And like, so let's say you were in the queue and you missed out. Like, now your only chance of getting a LaMelo is paying $3,000, $2,000 in the marketplace. Like, that sucks.
Right.
But
tough.
How do we weigh these? Yeah. No, we know Dapper Labs is dealing with difficult problems. Like, these are tough questions.
They really are. Like, what do you think about it? Like, how do you weigh those two issues?
I'm a huge proponent of, I hate that the newer entrants, the ones who are less educated, are the ones that are getting screwed in this market. Like, that's not how it should be, and that's not user friendly. And so one of our North Stars for building these tools are like, how can we make the things that are most important for people to be able to find easily and see? And that's why that's down in green to show up, because like, hey, this isn't, and maybe like we need some form of like notations on this for like as well, to be like, hey, just a heads up, like this is only 17% circulation. If you're thinking about buying this moment, just know that there's going to be another 3,300 that are still going to come out. Or
you could color code it and put it in red if it's like below 50% or something.
Yeah, that's not bad. I mean, like, TJ, if you go to link to Top Shot here, if we have 694 out, usually you only have around 10% in the marketplace. Nothing.
The market's down. That's right.
So, yeah. But you're only going to see, that means around like, I don't know, 70 in the marketplace for sale. And if you're talking
124.
Oh, there you go. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so we're at 3% of it. Okay, here's the thing though. That percent though is of your 4,000.
Yep.
This is
correct.
124 out of 694 is 1/7. So we're looking at almost like 15% or so of, which is actually a pretty high number for in the market. And a lot of that probably is people who own it.
I think that's more than 15%.
What, 15 times 7? Like 18, 17. Yeah.
Let me do some quick math here. That's like actually a really high number. Yeah, it's 18%. So that would be like 18% would be like top 5% most listed moment.
It's probably
You know what I mean?
and,
Like that would be like one of the most heavily listed on the site.
and
But
as you said, it's because people who got it, they pulled it, they want to get out of it because they know they're better off selling it for low ass now, even undercutting, than waiting for the next pre-order packs or whatever come out and now more hit the market.
And it definitely sucks if you like want a LaMelo and you don't even get the pack that it's in, and you just never get a chance.
Right.
But I agree with you that I think this,
like, so yeah, it's 18%. We need to update that individual moment page it seems, but on here we have the percent listed as a function of the amount that are in circulation. So
it's a math thing because we have it set right now for how many are in, on the marketplace out of total. Here, percent listed is based off what our circulation
listed over owned, yeah,
which it should be, yeah.
Which we'll change that other one too in the near future. But yeah, so I think this is really useful. This is actually stuff that we just recently added to the site, but I think it's helpful in providing that transparency before you ever go into a moment. You should know, what like any of these, like you really should just honestly not be buying it. Like,
can you go to Kawhi? Let's bring up the example, or anyone of these /1000s, because this is another example of the education aspect, and this is kind of a short-term thing. Eventually, it's going to get solved, but like, how many of these are actually in circulation versus in the Top Shot account? Because that's just another example. And thankfully, this one doesn't impact the more common user as much, other than if a new market, a new player kind of makes one big purchase or a couple purchases. But this is another one. I can't own any of those /1000 S1s, knowing that the prices are all completely inflated for when Top Shot, however they are, distributes the moments.
Yep. Yeah. So that's another one that there has not been a ton of transparency around. So that's another thing that we added just recently this week is how many people are held by Top Shot. And like Justin said, it only impacts a lot of these S1s out of 1,000. So that's good, but it's still, a complete black box of an area. So it's important to make sure that the market is educated on these kinds of things, because it definitely makes an impact. Any final thoughts on this? That was a good chat. Wow, we're already at an hour. This has flown by, I must say. Wow. I can't believe it's been an hour. It did not feel like that.
I've been full screen, so I'm catching up on the chat now because there's some good comments here and some just good, interesting ones. Yeah, and same thing as CJ said. Like, we have been trying to read more of the. We understand that not everyone's able to watch the show now. So for the people that are watching afterwards, please put your questions, put your comments in the chat, because we have been actually reaching out to people and answering some questions there. Because there is a lot of good discussion that happens after the event for people that can't make the chat.
There's one issue I wanted to touch on from the thread, if you guys want to go into it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think I'm going to do a thread on this at some point, but there's a debate that kind of playing out in the community of whether or not Top Shot has tapped out the core user base. And I think I want to dive deeper on this subject at some point. But I think that to say that the market is saturated, or that everybody who's kind of going to be a core user of Top Shot is already on the platform, I think that is way, 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 way off. And I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that, or I could kind of talk a little bit about what I'm going to go into, but I don't think that we've seen a saturation of the core community yet.
No, I think there's two things there. There is tapped out as in financially, the people who are in it. I still feel like those people are willing and ready to pay more once a couple things happen. One of them is the withdrawals. One of them is when they actually see that there's going to be momentum, or at least stagnant.
Yeah.
And they have more confidence in the product. But the people who are in it are not even tapped out. And then if we're talking about outside of Top Shot and the new market entrants, holy shit, they're not even close. Not even close.
I think if you think about this from the standpoint of a startup, right? A typical tech startup, right? If you went to an investor and you said that we have, 200,000 active users, and they said, oh, well, that's great. How many of them are paying? And you said all of them. And then they said, okay, well, what's your marketing budget? And you said 0. They would say, well, this sounds like the greatest startup in the history of the earth. Where can I write my check? Right? If you think about the dynamics of this platform, without any paid marketing, paid acquisition, right? They have hundreds of thousands of buyers just from like word of mouth advertising. The viral coefficient of this business is absolutely enormous, right? And the types of marketing opportunities that they have access to are unlike any other business on earth, because they can tap into the NBA and use their marketing network to push their messaging, right? Like, for example, if they did a commercial during the NBA playoffs for one of the challenges, right? Like, let's say they did a round one challenge, like, oh, you know, Trailblazers versus whoever, right? Damian Lillard hits a game-winning 3 in Game 7. Complete our round one NBA playoff set for a chance at the Dame moment. And then it's like a commercial of like great footage of him like draining the shot, right? And then they put that in a commercial and show it like during the NBA playoffs. Like that's a no-brainer. Now, I don't know if they'll actually be able to make that activation happen, because Dapper Labs is going to like, you know, really, the NBA is going to have to want to do that in order for that. Like, Dapper's not going to just be like, hey, NBA, like, want to like give us some advertising near your platform. The NBA is getting it. So they may be interested. And if they are doing those types of activations, or it's in arena at the NBA games, or they can make deals with teams to have access to the players, like, the opportunities are so big, and the Players Association is already involved. So they're making money off of it. And if they can get to a couple 100,000 users, just like people playing pickup basketball, being like, hey, have you heard of this thing called Top Shot? Somebody's like, oh, what's that? And then they explain, they're like, oh, sure, I'll put like $200 in. Like, imagine what'll happen when they actually start like using NBA players to do marketing, when they actually start running commercials, running ads on Twitter, like building out a social content team to like push this stuff way, way, way harder. Like if you can do this with just organic acquisition, like once they start building out a marketing arm, it's just going to go crazy, because it's still going to have that viral component, right? If you get a paid user, right? If you pay to acquire a user, they're still going to probably tell their friends about it if they like it, right? And we've seen that the current users like already love the product. So when you get those paid users, it just branches it out even more. So the fact that they've been able to do this while just kind of like existing means that like the market is, and then there's a whole global market that doesn't even touch, right? Most people outside the US can't even buy.
Yeah, we're waiting for Serbia. I don't know if you've heard, we're the #1 podcast in Serbia. That's been our goal from the very beginning. So we're pretty sure that's Nikola Jokic's entire family is watching us. But no, you make a really good point. And I think it's more than just marketing too. What about utility? And having that NBA connection, like, you have the ability to go to a game and you see, you know, Jokic hit his 15 assists, and that breaks a record or something, and you get that moment. Or Dallas Mavs. We already know Mark Cuban is looking into NFTs for tickets so they can collect royalties. Mark Cuban is also on the head of a blockchain council with other owners. No question that they are bought into this. They've already connected in the All-Star game. Like, they connected with a team that is in beta to release their rising stars during the All-Star game. That shows they are bought into this.
Right?
Like, this is not just a set side project. This is not nothing. They also listen to their players more than any other league. And when they see their players, they see what Harrison Barnes is doing. They see that level of momentum and engagement. Not to mention, Sacramento Kings just said they're going to pay their players in Bitcoin if they want. Like, this is a whole market going, and we are so early in it, not only from the Top Shot, but just the larger ecosystem.
I would love to see, to your point, I like have so many different thoughts based on what you just said. I think #1, I would just love to see collections. Like, if Jokic, like, for example, Lonzo Ball hit, like, I think a career high 8 3-pointers like 2 nights ago or 3 nights ago or something. I would love to see like a collection moment, montage,
a game moment. Yeah.
A game. Oh, Owen Lonzo's 8 3-pointer game. I feel like that's really low hanging fruit. I feel like I can't possibly be the first one with that idea. And like, I feel like they're probably going to do that just because it's so obvious. But I can't wait. And I think that, like, on the user front, like, if they're announcing their rising stars on Top Shot, like, that's not the end of the road, right? Like, it's like, all right, we announced the rising stars on Top Shot. Now we're done. It's like,
they're going to have in-person events.
That's the first thing.
Yeah, that's what we've been saying. All-Star game next year, they're going to have in-person events. It's going to have NBA players. It's going to require either a level of baller status or a level of moments or something to attend. There's going to be some connection. OTM, we'll have our in-person conference there. Like, it's legit going to be a big thing, I think, and we're excited for it.
70% of web traffic is on mobile. Top Shot doesn't have a mobile app yet.
Yeah. and they have 2 in design from what we're hearing: marketplace and hardcore.
Mobile's gonna be crazy.
Yeah,
and
no
it's
doubt.
like it's gonna happen. Now they have $300 million. Like that's gonna launch this year.
How many?
Probably.
I mean, hardcore. I think hardcore's going to launch this year, so that'll be the first mobile aspect. I don't know the development of the marketplace one,
Right.
But yeah.
Well, and that's tough because then they have to give like there's like all types of like rules. Like they may have to give a portion of the sales to like the
Apple,
like, yeah,
the iOS,
exactly. Yeah. So I don't know if they really want to do that, but it certainly would improve ease of use.
And on ramp, because if people can search for it in the App Store,
exactly.
Right. It's a question of how sales happen. Like if you can make the sale there, do you have to give Apple? I know it's pretty tricky there and stuff, but
I think you do. I think you have to pay the piper, so maybe that'll dissuade them. But and the mobile experience is decent right now, like just on the web browser. But I think that there's a lot still to come on that front.
They're also large enough that they could negotiate their own contract with Apple. They could negotiate something due to their size and the NBA connection that is different than the normal just, hey, fees, if they're going to be purely a marketplace app.
And again, they're going to need Dapper Labs is going to need a big assist from the NBA if they want to make that happen. You know, Dapper Labs is like a great like company. They're raising a ton of money, but I don't think Apple's going to take that.
It's the NBA.
I don't think Apple's going to take that call.
It'd be if you have the NBA, right?
Yeah, they're going to need the NBA to help.
Oh, it's crazy. It's exciting. I mean, and we've seen how quickly new features have already been released in the past probably week or two. You know, other than obviously today, significant maintenance. There was 11-minute maintenance yesterday. We hadn't really seen like a site down or maintenance in probably a week or two. Like it's been pretty rare, and more we've just seen kind of new features, small new features getting released. And I think that cycle time for these fast release cycles are just going to continue to quicken and decrease.
No, and it does. So there's a couple things here, I think. One, it takes a month or two to hire and onboard developers. The other thing is it can cost a lot of money to find good developers. Oh boy. It can cost a lot of money to find good developers, right? So like, you know, a lot of companies pay like huge referral fees. Like, oh, if you refer us a developer, we'll pay you a ton of money because they're just desperate, right? Now that profiles increase to the point where they can probably attract really good talent, but like it's been an exponential growth in that category. So like you have to find them, and you might have to pay a lot of money to find them. Number two, you have to hire them and get them to like put in their 2 weeks of their current job, whatever. And then you have to onboard them, right? They can't just sit down in their, you know, at their desk the first day and then just start ripping up a new feature, right? You got to onboard them. And they just closed this funding round, like what, a couple weeks ago? Like the wire transfer probably hit, like, I don't even know if it's hit yet, right? It might have hit a week ago, 2 weeks ago. It might be this week, whatever. Of course, they can start hiring before the money hits officially. But like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not like it's just like, oh, we announced a fundraising round. Oh, we actually have a team of 20 people now that are ready to go tomorrow, right? It's like, it takes like a little while, not like a year, but like it's going to take a couple weeks to get everything. And it's going to come kind of in waves over the next 2 months. But I think we're starting to see it, right? Like we're starting to see more and more features. And I think that like 3 months from now, we're going to look back on like March and then like early April, and we're going to be like, wow, like that was like, you know, a whole different version of NBA Top Shot, which is what I don't think people are pricing in totally yet, is that like in 4 months, 5 months, even like let's say during the NBA finals, like this platform is going to be like the company that's building it is going to be like 5 times as big, 4 times as big.
And this is why I have no question that I am going to be, and I'm slowly starting to get into that accumulation phase. It is not a question of if, it is a question of when. And I saw Jay Miner mentioned earlier, like his reason for not jumping into it now or aping a bit more in is because the opportunity cost is minimal, meaning if prices start going up significantly, he can then kind of jump in and it's not a big cost versus like watching things wait. And I get that. But I'm just so bullish on the long term and so bullish on like what we've seen. And when we say long term, I'm not talking 3-5 years. I'm talking like 6 months, a year.
A year I think is like a really great time frame. Although I think there's like a few things. Like one is that I don't know if we've seen the bottom yet, just because, like I said, it can take a month, it can take 2 months to get everybody onboarding and on the same page and working on shipping new features and like building those new processes, right? And it's only been a couple of weeks. So like, could it go down more like a week from now or like a week and a half from now? I think theoretically it definitely could. I don't know if it will. And then, but the real thing, there's a couple other issues. One, what are they going to do with the supply, right? Are they going to dump a bunch of new moments in? Because they could do that at any time. And frankly, they probably should dump at least a decent amount of new moments in, although this new drop will help. And preparing for us like a demand increase in the long term. But then there's also just like the question of like when they're going to start marketing and when they're going to like officially start trying to ramp up the user base. Because like I said, like Dapper Labs is controlling both sides of the equation here. They're controlling the supply and they have some kind of control over when they start marketing. So because of that, you can't just go out there and say like, oh, like buy anything and it'll appreciate, or you know what I mean? Like it, and so like, and the market cap might go up, but they might decide it's best for the long term of the platform to increase the supply substantially. So then you, if you buy a bunch of commons, like they're going to go down. So it's really hard to say like when the spike might happen, and also trying to predict what Dapper Labs is going to do that's going to interact heavily with like price fluctuations of individual moments. So like, I think a year from now, like I usually, so like to just like go into my buying strategy a little bit more, like if I'm really going to buy something, like I'm not going to buy pretty much, and maybe so there's some exceptions like LeBron, but anything that's more than a 4,000 LE. Like if it's 10K LE, like maybe I'll buy it. Seeing Stars, I bought like maybe one or two just because they were so cheap, but like I'm not going to make a big investment in that. Like if I'm going to buy anything, it's going to be 1,000 LE, or like, you know, even I have my eyes on like 200 LEs, or like some like maybe like a Halo icon moment, or like a legendary moment, or like something like that, you know? That's really like, and I'm not saying that like those have no risk either, because they definitely do, but I just think that it's less likely that those get diluted. And it's just like, I'm not putting $80 into a 12,000 LE. I don't like that.
To that point, you can't dilute S1. You can't really dilute S2 rookie / 4,000.
I much prefer S1.
Right. And so, I mean, and that's where obviously like they're more expensive and stuff, but there's a reason why, while the S2s, we saw, like I talked to TJ the other day, like Zach LaVine, I was buying at $20. It was up to $200. And I don't think I sold any, maybe one. And now it's like 29. But like the reason why that fluctuates so much, like, but then you compare to an S1 Zach LaVine, which like never went to 10x, but also never dropped down to now 50%, 40% or whatever from like that absolute bottom. And I think that's the thing where like you understand your risk profile, you understand what you're trying to go for. And yeah, these rookies might have a higher upside, but they have more risk. The S1s, you know what the player is, you know that they can't screw up the kind of oversaturation with moments and such. And you each find your strategy, and I'm hoping that, I know that we've been on this for a while today, but I'm hoping that through these conversations, we kind of helped everyone here take bits and pieces from what Max is saying, what TJ and I have been saying, take it to your strategy and try to improve that. And, hopefully that we helped a little.
Yeah. Good conversation tonight, guys. It is, we've been approaching an hour and 20 minutes here. So do want to wrap up the show. Thanks to everyone for listening. I'll kick it to each of you guys for final closing thoughts before we fully end the show. So Max, I will go to you first, and then Justin, you after. Any final thoughts? Max, thanks for joining us tonight.
Yeah, no, it was great to be on. I think we covered like a lot of really important topics for the future of Top Shot. I think that like, I did say this in a thread earlier today, but I think like if there's one thing I would say, it's that you just have to be patient, right? Like it is a beta. It's a beta. And the other thing I'd say is it's supposed to be fun. Like I am not in Top Shot because I'm trying to like flip a moment and like make $400. Like there are better ways to spend your time to make like $100 flipping something, right? I have been an NBA fan my whole life. Like, look, I'm wearing my gear right now. Like I used to work in the NBA. I worked for the Timberwolves. Like I was writing for the NBA, like, when I was in high school and college and stuff. Like I love the NBA and I love like crypto. And this is just kind of a marriage of like a bunch of things I enjoy, and the community is super supportive and awesome. So, don't buy something because of a Twitter thread, right? Like don't like invest and like try to make a quick buck. Like I really believe in the platform long-term, but like, even if I lose $100 on a moment or $200 on the moment, I really don't panic, because like it is fun. I love the community. I love researching it. I love buying it. I love watching my moments. I can't wait to get one of those things on my desk. I cannot wait to get like a rotating, like like, 5x7 to like program with my moments and stuff like that, like to display them like physically. Like I'm so excited for that. But that's the fun of it, right? Like it's not about making $100 here or there. It's about like collecting, being there in the long term, and like getting packs and being a part of the community. That's what's so fun about Top Shot, and that's why I love it. Not because I'm trying to make $100. And I really believe in Dapper Labs and the team in the long term. That doesn't mean I think I'm going to become a millionaire off of this or something like that. And frankly, I don't really care if I do or not, because it's fun and I like it. So that's why I do it, and that's why you should do too if you are. So that's like just kind of my final thought. It's supposed to be fun, and if you're not having fun, then you probably shouldn't be doing it.
No, I love
Absolutely.
that. And I think what I'll close with is, and I'll tag on what you mentioned, where you're like, hey, if I lose $100, $200, like it's not the end of the world here. And like, hey, if these were physical cards and you paid a decent amount of money for cards, you actually have some physical cards, just like we have moments and such. And what you bought hasn't changed. So just because you may have gotten out there and you bought some moments and the marketplace, the current ask of it has decreased, doesn't mean that the value or actually what you bought has changed at all. And so if you believe the same thing as you believe when you bought those moments about the long-term possibility, the long-term of this market, then stay with those beliefs, because you haven't actually lost money. You haven't lost money unless you've actually given up and sold that. And you can sell if you want to sell, you want to buy something else, whatever. But like, what you bought hasn't actually decreased. Like you haven't lost anything. The same actual moment is still there. You're in this for the long haul if that's what you are, if it's a midterm, a long-term strategy. So just have an idea of what you're trying to get out of this. And as Max said, obviously there's the fun level. Obviously there's the collector. Obviously there's the kind of game aspect to it. But don't feel like just because you got in a month ago and the current valuation is down means that you've lost, means that you've lost money. In reality, all you've done is you've accumulated and you're riding it right now. And if you decide not to sell, that's great, because if you believe that in the future it's going to go up, then you haven't lost anything. You're just along the ride.
Yep. Love that. Just because you bought 80 Al Horfords and the price went down doesn't mean that it's not still fun to own 80 Al Horfords. So
I actually did buy an Al Horford and it did go down.
That's
I have 80.
Justin bought like 80 of them, and yeah, I'm sitting on a bunch of we're sitting on a bunch of things that didn't quite work out. But you know what? I love the story behind it, and it really is fun.
Wait for the hardcore. I'm gonna get Al Horford. I'm just gonna be throwing up all of these whatevers.
Yeah. Just the starting 5 of 5 Al Horfords. Like, how could you possibly beat that? I mean, that's pretty much the dream team right there.
How does he keep supercharging his Al Horford? Like, he has to run out of these. No.
Oh man. All right, gentlemen. Well, it was a blast chatting with you guys tonight. Thanks to everyone in the chat. Super fun stream, super informative. Sorry for going a little bit over time, but I think it was well worth it with all of the knowledge that was dropped by Justin and by Max tonight. So thanks to everyone for the show. We'll go ahead and close things out. So on behalf of Justin, on behalf of Max, and of course, on behalf of producer Coop behind the scenes, I am TJ Lasig, and we will see you guys next time.